All right, y'all, what's poppin'? Today we're gonna be doing a few updates on the cases of not only Nex Benedict, but also of Antoinette, Claudia Bailey. Basically, there's a few news stories I've done in the past months. And unfortunately, there has been a few updates within their story. But going first within Nex Benedict case, basically, if you don't know who Nex Benedict was, basically they were a trans non-binary youth that was unalived or passed away a few months ago following an altercation at their school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This altercation happened between students as well as the school failed to get the necessary help that Benedict needed. And within the next few days after this altercation, Benedict unfortunately passed away in the hospital. But unfortunately, the district attorney has decided not to file charges in the passing of Nex Benedict or the fight that preceded it, basically. The DA, Steve Kunzweiler, called Benedict's unaliving or passing was ruled a self-deletion by the Oklahoma's chief medical examiner and is considered a tragedy, but said based on investigation by the Owosu Police Department, the filing of juvenile charges is not warranted. As I stated, the sophomore passed away a day after a fight with other students in the bathroom, other girls in the bathroom, raising questions about whether they bully or target Nex because of their gender and expansive identity. Benedict 16 used pronouns he, him, they, and them. And in light of the teens passing has gained a lot of national attention based on the LGBTQIA plus rhetoric that's been going around the country, especially pertaining to school. Not only when it comes to sex education being more inclusive, but also to the non-gender conforming bathrooms issue that's been going on across the country. Jacob Bibby, the attorney of the family, has declined to comment after the decision was released on Thursday. But the DA has considered 60 pages of police reports. Basically, Oklahoma's chief medical examiner has said Benedict died February 8th from toxicity of dihydroaminidramine, an antihistamine, a fluoxetine, as well as an antidepressant medication. These drugs are not illegal and they were legally available within the home where Benedict was raised. An important part of the investigation were notes written by Benedict that appear to be related to unaliving. He declined to disclose any details about the notes except to say that they do not make any reference to the earlier fight or difficulties at school. As a reminder, they then told the school resource officer that a group of girls they did not know had been antagonizing them and their friends, and because of the way they would dress and laugh. So I went up there and poured water on them, and all three of them then came at me. Benedict said, explaining the water came from a water bottle. Benedict then said the girls took him to the ground and was beating them when Benedict blacked out. The interview was recorded by the officer's body cam, and as Benedict lay in the hospital bed, the officer explained that they could be facing assault charges because they escorted other students with water. So going up, and I've just looked at the body cam footage. I'll release it to y'all. I don't feel like comfortable showing it because in context of just like the passing of Nex. But basically, when it comes to talking about if the teen should be charged, that is up in the air because, as said in this article and in the body cam footage, Nex did throw the water on the girls, which they proceeded to like jump them. Now, if you think that was too much force or too much kind of like overreaction, then that's a whole different story about whether they should be charged. But at the very least, the school needs to be charged, at least for not rendering aid, because at the very least you have to understand when a teen blacks out or teens get unconscious, you have to administer aid or something, and oftentimes you have to bring in a medical expert or bring in the EMTs or bring in to the ER just in case something else might happen, because the school nurse can examine you, look at whatever, test you out, but you don't know what's under the surface. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Just bring in the EMT and just alert the parents and stuff. So I think at the very least there is a miscarriage of justice on this part. I think the school board, I think at least in a civil lawsuit, need to be sued because it's just they didn't do their aid or didn't do their due diligence. And if there's been a history of bullying and stuff that preceded what happened that day, then and they allowed it and they didn't really do anything about it, then there's could be a case for a civil rights lawsuit or a civil case in that, in my opinion. I'm not a legal expert, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a lawsuit or anything like that, but that is just my personal opinion. I think this should be seen as a civil matter. Now, going into the case of Dr. Antoinette Claudia Bailey. Basically, Dr. Bailey was the vice president at the Lincoln University, HBCU, basically in Missouri, and basically she had unalived herself due to a history of what has been called by her bullying, as well as in an unproductive and a mentally conducive work environment. And so pretty much there has been an investigation to the president right here, Dr. Mosley, basically, for the past few months over like his work environment, because he has been like the aggressor or been the alleged aggressor in this situation. And basically they have basically reinstated him, found there was no wrongdoing in his case. Now, this investigation came after the firestorm that about 1,800 students in his alumni group called for Mosley's termination following Candia Bailey's passing. A string of fire Mosley social media posts questioned his qualifications, his treatment of black administrators, the black administrator, whether it was appropriate for a white man who had been serving as the school's athletic director and basketball coach to lead a historically black college. That was one of the questions I raised in the last video, because that was pretty much his previous experience. He has no experience in educational leadership other than just like athletic, part of it, and that's a whole nother different world and field than actually like sitting down in the classroom. And it's just like going from that to just leading like a HBCU as a white man where no shared experiences with many of your students is a big issue in itself. But just continuing, Monica Graham, a Lincoln graduate and longtime friend of Candia Bailey, said Thursday she was disgusted and sick to her stomach about the results of the investigation, which she said was biased because the law firm was paid and hired by the university. That is also conflict of interest as well. And even in the deliberation process, the curators admitted that Mosley's communication style is direct and that workplace stress under his leadership led to office tensions. That's a big indicator. If under his leadership causes tensions in office, that is like one thing you need to like really just hone in, because yes, I worked with many direct people as a professor, or not a professor, as a grad student who worked with professors who worked with other students. Like, I've met many direct people, but we were able to still get stuff done without office tensions. If you want to reinstate him, that's fine, but like he needs to go through like a year of training or something. At that point, you really need to have an interim president come in, see how things change. If things are a lot better, then you need to fire him. But this training and resources, oftentimes when it comes to leadership, it's just bare bones, check off the listings, just like, kumbaya sessions where just really effective leadership or change doesn't happen. Like, to actually affect change, it has to be structural. Now, Graham has said that her friend has unalived herself days after being fired as the vice president of student affairs. She also shared an email which Candia Bailey detailed the problems she was having with Mosley, including saying that he harassed her and alluded to her being an angry black woman. That is a very big microaggression that a lot of black women face, which she described as a stereotype that demoralized black women for decades. Yep, damn right. And then Candia Bailey wrote that situation deteriorated after she requested time off through the Family Medical Leave Act to deal with her severe depression and anxiety. An important lesson from this tragedy loss of an university administrator who oversaw the mental health services on campus is that simple access to mental health support services is not always enough. And we must move beyond access to acceptance and normalization so that all our employees and students know that is normal, as well as sometimes vital to seek help. Yeah, so basically they really just shifted this whole issue on her having this mental health thing. Like, it's just mental health, she need to fix herself. When it's just like, you still have a guy that has a history of, having this type of behavior. Where is he at? Having this type of behavior, where it's just like he's causing his employees to have these mental health crises and really not being conducive to the work environment, or having an inclusive work environment. And this is a problem I have with, university leadership when it comes to just like when we have to call for structural change, and when we tell y'all that they are the problem, it doesn't get resolved. And it's just like we have to work on ourselves, or we have to come in this kumbaya, we have to shift our mindset, we have to do this, that, and third. And not the fact that, hey, maybe you are the problem. Maybe you need to go do this. Maybe you need to take some time off, and you need to be more accommodating to us. And it's one of the downfalls I hate about this whole DEIA industry, where now companies are starting to make profits off of training, because you're now shifting the idea of DEIA or inclusivity or, mental health, including that as well. You're shifting that something that is malleable, that is mainly behavior based, but it's not within the systems or structures in a way that we, work in the world. And it really doesn't create the long lasting change that needs to be created, because if we really wanted to be, hold this university accountable and to create lasting change, basically he would be fired. You put somebody that actually looks and feels like some of the staff and students that work there, and pretty much you have an understanding that, hey, like, this is something that, they really want to work with the student body to make sure that this is a conducive place for learning, as well as work with employees to make sure they do their part to make this a conducive place for the students. So in my personal experience, I feel like a miscarriage of justice has been done all around, because even if you think Nex might have unalived themselves, even after getting beat by like the girls, even after they might have thrown that water bottle to proceed that beating, or, Claudia Bailey, might have been, having a mental health crisis and, unalived herself, or if Dr. Mosley probably wasn't a bad, manager or not, whatever, it's still the fact that no accountability has been made, as well as no systematic changes being addressed. And this is a scary trend we're seeing a lot, especially with the anti-DEIA stuff that's going on with colleges. I know one example is Florida. Like, Florida has been embroiled in weeks about their anti-DEIA bills and stuff, as well as Texas. And basically a lot of DEIA offices had to close down across the state because now they're in the running of like losing federal funding or getting shut down or getting fined and stuff, because it's now illegal to like have DEIA programs. And as a product of DEIA, and knowing that I would not be here in this position without DEIA programs across my educational journey, I just think this is just a miscarriage of justice. I feel like there's need to be more big changes addressing these issues, and there's more than what I can really address in this video. That is a whole nother investigative commentary video in itself. But my heart just goes out to the family of Claudia Bailey, Dr. Claudia Bailey, let me say that, as well as Nex Benedict, because it's just like they should be still alive today. And it's just like, if someone actually listened, someone actually stepped up and stepped in, they wouldn't be, in heaven right now. So RIP to them, rest in power to them. My condolences to the family, and this is just an update on their cases.